Welcome in a new episode of Oxygen Talk Show. Today's episode is very special for many reasons. Number one, because we are at the first time to make a debate. And the second thing, as you hear me, I'm talking in English. The debate will be on the 6-8 curriculum. And I'm talking in English in order to make sure that our second generation, our sons and daughters, have a clear understanding of what is going on regarding these subjects, and many questions they ask and the parent ask might be answered in this episode. I'm very happy to have this debate, and let's welcome our valued guest, Professor Scott Masson, and he is associate professor in Parental University and a human rights activist and a guest speaker in many of the talk show. And also we have Khaled Kaff here, who is a pharmacist and also a human rights activist, and he came especially for Oxygen Talk Show from Ottawa. Thank you very much, dear guest, and thank you, Khaled. Thank you, Professor Scott. Yeah. Let's start that we came to Canada because of freedom, and we believe in this freedom will lead to many good things to us and to our kids. We believe that freedom will lead to more creativity, better lifestyles, and education. And when we are tackling the education matter, we cannot deny the 6-8 curriculum, which exposed by Ontario government and make a lot of debate. And it is a controversial subject in our community. Some of them are against the 6-8 curriculum and feel it is a threat, and some they say it is a good thing and they are with the 6-8 curriculum. Here we will ask our question to our valued guest. 6-8 curriculum is an advantage to our kids or might be a threat? Let's start with Professor Scott.
Hi. Well, I personally think it's a threat, and I have written on the subject in the National Post and elsewhere, and spoken on it as well numerous times over the last several years, because the curriculum was originally put forward by the McGuinty government a few years ago, and the parents at the time groups were so outraged by it that within 2 days he withdrew the curriculum, and nothing was really heard of it again until after Kathleen Wynne won her majority government, at which point it became put back on the table, even though it hadn't been an election item. So I've studied this for several years. I have several concerns about it. Largely they're related to the subject matter and the age appropriateness, but also just the terms in which it is structured. There's no mention of love or marriage in the curriculum, which is most people would understand as a standard expectation when children are taught about sex or sex in general. They want to see it in the context of a fruitful, lifelong relationship, and to avoid the sort of diseases which are, quite frankly, at the moment rampant. At the same time, I mean, those that propose the curriculum say, well, that you know, with the age of the internet and with smartphones, which we all have, there's a need to update the curriculum. There's also other legislation like same-sex marriage and transgender stuff that they want to include in the curriculum. For me, to present this to children is deeply concerning, because children are not really ready to deal with the abstract, and sometimes really the idea of moral responsibility comes with time. We have an age of majority for a reason. It tends to be 16, 18, depending on what we're talking about. We don't allow people to drink in Ontario till they're 19 or drive till they're 16, and yet we're teaching them the concept of sexual consent at the age of 6, which is at a time when they're really not equipped to deal with that. The analogy I like to draw is of weight training. I used to do sports. If you do weight training when you're too young, you can actually damage your physique. Your bones can be damaged by it. I think the same goes for the subject of sex. You need to be at an age when you can understand and grasp the concepts of it in order to really be educated in it.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. We know that this is a very good principles, but they know it anyway. There are some voices say they know it anyway, and it's better to know it from a good source like school, not from their colleagues or bad source. What about you, Khaled?
I think, sorry. I think talking about sex is a very important part. We, as Homo sapiens, we have sex is not only to have offspring, it's part of our personality and our individuality. And we have to address this subject. My eye is on the immigrants coming from conservative societies like ours. And there is no talk about it. And I was lucky to have physicians in the family, so I can ask them, but not everyone has this advantage. When to start teaching kids sex? As early as possible. Simple reason.
This is something which opposite to what Professor Scott mentioned.
I have 3 reasons here. First, if you were raised in a farm or around animals, you see cow giving birth and dogs having
mating,
sex, mating. And there is, it's not a strange thing. And as a father, kids start to ask questions, embarrassing and difficult questions at very, very early age. Where I came from, why mama has a big belly, where my cousin came from, he wasn't here last year, what you mean by she gave a birth, and so on. So there is 2 ways here. I can tell him, well, we found you in a garbage can, or we got you in the mail from Santa Claus, and destroy his knowledge for a few years till he get the shock when he's 12 or 13, or try to explain it to him. Father and mother explaining sex to kids, I know for sure in our society, our community, is a taboo, is a no-no. Let's do it at school. It's septic environment, and things done given at school is usually the kids take it as a fact, not as an excitement.
Yeah.
Okay. There is another point, and I have to address it. Kids by the age of 4, 5, and 6, they can be subjected to abuse. Kids have to know the difference between sexual abuse, bad touch, and friendly touch. And they have to be comfortable to talk about it, if not to their parents, to their teacher. Otherwise, we will have a complex will grow with the kids. And they are subjected to abuse in a very safe environment. At school, sometimes at home, in the hockey team, and the soccer team. They have to know the difference between a friendly touch and so on. Last one.
Yeah.
And I think kids by the age of 12 or 13, they have to have a full knowledge about sex, pregnancy, contraceptive, and sexually transmitted disease. Like it or not, they will, it's an open society. They will have sex at the early age. We don't want girls at the age of 14 and 15 pregnant because they don't understand anything about anything.
Totally, I'm with you when we're providing a protective information to our kids to know what is the difference between friendly touch or abusing touch. But this is something different when we put some information to open their eyes for unknowns. For example, they have many unknowns, but what I'm highlighting on it, they began to take care of it. And I don't think that such details will be a good thing to make our kids' mind busy by it. How about that, Professor Scott?
No, I agree with that, basically. The issue of consent is not the same thing as introducing the birds and the bees. I don't mind sexual education being a part of a person's education. I think it's a necessary part of it because, as you say, we're sexual beings. But the question is whether the government has a one-size-fit-all solution for everyone, because each child has a different age and stage of development as well. And UN declarations, like the UN Rights of the Child, state that parents have the first prerogative, or the prior educators of their children. And this government has not consulted with parents on that. And I do think there are differences culturally as well in when that would be introduced. Now, if it's not taught at all, that's going to be a problem. I agree with that. But whether the government ought to be doing that is another question, for one thing. The other thing is that there are concepts which are introduced which, quite frankly, I think are irrational and unscientific, like that of gender identity in the 3rd grade. I don't think this is based on science. As far as the sexual diseases and so forth, what is taught is that sex happens and you should use a condom to prevent the diseases. But many strains of STI, sexually transmitted infections, are not prevented by the use of condoms. Many. And that's not actually taught to them in the curriculum, and it doesn't even deal with the problem of internet pornography. So this is an updated curriculum to deal with contemporary realities, and it doesn't mention internet pornography. I mean, the statistics demonstrate that by the age of 9, most children have seen pornography on the internet. And yet this isn't even mentioned in the curriculum. You think this is very odd. The other thing, there is a difference between hearing about sex from one of your peers and from somebody who you respect in a position of authority. I do think that it gives a different flavor and dimension to it, and there are no there's a broad guidelines for the teacher to teach on this issue, but the specifics and how they go about it, that's up to the teacher. And it seems to me that if you do have teachers that are have bad intentions with the students, it allows them to introduce ideas with students, and then they can deal with students that are quite frankly vulnerable. And the author of this curriculum, at least a significant part of it, Benjamin Levin, was arrested for, among other things, internet pornography. And I think that's deeply problematic.
Yeah, and let me discuss the problem. So it is not clear what is to be taught or not to be taught, but at the end of the day, information is required. Some informations lead to some abnormal cases, especially for the Middle Eastern community. For example, the gender fluidity or the homosexuality. So this, I think in USA, the last months have been declared a new 31 kind of gender. And actually it lead to another problem in the bathrooms or the shared bathroom signs if we discuss this. So I know that is with more freedom, as I introduced at the beginning, it is more creativity and more lifestyle. How about this? Do you think it's okay for that?
Okay, I just want to
Point.
about the sexually transmitted disease. 2005 in Quebec, they stopped the sex education. Not stop it, they put it as according to the teacher. And most of the teachers, actually, they are not teaching it, either because of the pressure or because personal beliefs. What we have now in Quebec is epidemic level of sexually transmitted disease, especially herpes. And a lot of experts are connecting this directly to the lack of sex education. This is a case here in Canada. We can see it, we can measure it. 2005, the curve is going up. A couple of years ago, some of the physicians, they said we are almost in epidemic. Now, kids in Western society, open society like that, they will have sex. They are open, and any question they will have, they will go to the internet, and they will find a lot of things. And as you said, some of the kids, actually you brought it down, because what I read is a report from London School of Economy that kids at the age, it was published 2013, that kids as young as the age of 11, they have seen
lower than that.
Yeah. So this is the danger. This is the danger. And I think they go there because of the curiosity. The human mind is curious. If you give him unsatisfied question, he will try to find a satisfied one. Even if it's an illusion, he will go. And I think, and this happens even to adults, watching porno will destroy a lot of meanings of love and sex.
Absolutely.
Even sex.
And physically, actually, it have another side physically, which is called pornography addiction.
Oh,
Sure.
yeah.
I mean, there's-
it's interferon, like jogging every day and
Yeah.
everything. It's the same. So you have to go there and so on. But if you give it you give information. We are talking about information, okay, to the kids about all aspects of sex. This is better. They are well equipped to understand even what they see, if this is normal or not. About sex identity, again, we have a very profound feeling of sex as human beings. And the notion that you can switch your identity, you became attractive to men, a man attractive to men, or woman, or transgender, just by reading or knowing something, has no scientific basic whatsoever. We have a lot of stories and illusions about sex. Till the First World War, the common wisdom was saying, if you use condom, you lose your mind. That's why there was an epidemic of syphilis in the Allied forces in France. I'm sorry, I have to say it. And for our parents in the Middle East to scare us, or our teachers, or the religious leaders, to scare us from masturbation, they came up with, you will lose your sight, you will have no knees, you will never have kids. We went to the point of you will have hair in your hand. This is unfundamental, it's unfounded notions.
Sure.
One of them also, what we are saying now, we are talking about, to the best of my knowledge, about 3% of the population. And we have sex education in countries like Sweden since 1958. And they are exposed to the genders, different genders, and even Sweden is the first one, came with the neutral, with the idea of neutral sex and so on. And I didn't read or I didn't hear that number of gays or lesbians increased in Sweden by 3-fold or 4-fold since 58 till now. So the idea that I read something, I change my sexual orientation is no. I didn't read, I didn't see, there is no cases, there is no studies, nothing. It's a fear, it's a phobia. Okay,
Yeah.
but we have to address it like that by knowledge.
Yeah, so that's sexual orientation. That deals with your attraction to others than the opposite sex, for instance, or whatever sex you're on. If it's the gay that you're attracted to men, if you're a man and so forth, when you weren't before, it doesn't come through information. It comes through a personal encounter. That's how it happens. Primarily, those who are gay, some will say that they, I mean, your own recounting of your own past is murky at best, quite frankly. You know, how did I become the way I am? I mean, you think back and you create stories, and sometimes they don't actually match the reality. But I think the studies are quite clear that many who become gay because somebody actually promotes that to them, like physically. I'm not just as a concept in school, but it introduces the idea, it allows somebody to talk about it. But gender identity is something different. It's when I'm a man and I think that I'm a woman. They introduced this in grade 3. To me, it's illogical for, I mean,
sorry, I have to interrupt you. No, they are not.
Yes, they are.
I read the curriculum and I didn't see it at all in
well, I can assure you that it's there in grade 3. Gender identity is introduced as a concept in the 3rd grade.
Not in 3rd grade at all.
I can assure you. But as
anyway, okay.
But sexual education was introduced by the cultural Marxists in the early 20th century in order to explicitly to break apart the family. This is the history of sexual education in the public school system. It has a history. It's not just. I agree with what you're saying about how sex was not taught and how the bad mistakes that were made in the past, and the ignorance that allowed things to flourish. But I don't think. And I don't agree with the conclusion that the reason that sexually transmitted diseases went up in Quebec in 2005 is because...
I'm not saying that.
No, you're not. You're quoting the study.
I'm quoting a study, I can show it to you.
But I would say in
2 years ago.
Right, in 2005, that's when the internet really starts taking off, right? So it comes everywhere, and I think you can note similar spikes in other places where they don't have, where the sex education didn't get dropped. So I would say, how do you explain that then? The reality also is that there are certain types of sex that are more prone to sexually transmitted diseases. Like gay sex, quite frankly, is an extremely dangerous pursuit, and the curriculum does not acquaint students of that fact. It simply does not. It mentions as a choice you can make according to your orientation, but it doesn't talk about the greater risk of disease that comes with that. And I think that's, if it's a health curriculum, this is not just an omission, this is a serious problem.
No, they mention it, and they mention the disease coming from it. And I've seen it myself. I was even surprised that it was mentioned that early age, that disease coming from the A-sex. And the problem is, again, back to the internet, that kids are curious. They will see things in the internet. If they don't get a good idea about what is that, what is the risk, what is going on, this is where they will try.
I think they'll get it through the internet anyway.
Yeah, but they have to go there with knowledge. They have to go there with a background, with information, concrete information.
But the sex ed curriculum doesn't provide it.
Like mathematics, like science, that's the information. If they don't provide it,
but
they have to.
I would say as an adult and a father, just like you two gentlemen, that the correct information is that the proper avenue for sex is within the confines of a marriage relationship where the intimacy of the couple is ensured, where there is a love, where there's a guarantee of protection, where children can be born and nurtured and so forth. That's not in the curriculum. So when you say the curriculum is going to educate them properly about sex, then why does it not mention those things? I find that extraordinary.
I have a question. Let me say it like that. So if the purpose of the sex ed curriculum is informing our kids by the right information. So especially for our Middle Eastern community who have some traditions and some of the freedom concepts in Canada is not accepted. So I expect the curriculum will direct our kids to respect the other, not to normalize the abnormality, which I put it in other phrases, to accept who is different in sex orientation, for example, gays, lesbians, or transgenders issues, I respect whoever one of that. But there is nothing mentioned that if I have a religious or traditional backgrounds, even the Middle Eastern community or the Indian community have some constraints or about that. So they do not mention that it is up to your background, or we respect also the other people. It is normalized in our sex ed curriculum.
There is a difference between knowing about it and normalizing.
Yeah.
You know, knowing about something, it doesn't mean I promote it. You know, I understand, and according to the American Society of Psychiatrists since 1973,
No, it is promoted.
No, they removed homosexuality from their guideline as a disease, or as...
Let me tell you something. In Bill 13, the Ontario started to pass Bill 13 in 2012, which is Gay Straight Line Alliance, which is some schools went to some kids clubs in order to promote the ideas of homosexuality. I'm telling you about by the name of the bill and the number of and the date of the year, and the club, which is the Gay Straight Alliance Club. What about this, Scott?
Well, I mean, the legislation around it, I believe, is that a student has to request the clubs. But I mean, of course, anyone can speak to a student and to say, make the request. And at that point, the school has to allow it. At that point, who can come in and speak to them? Well, there are groups that are available to speak to it, and the groups that speak to it are, quite frankly, activists in that community. So it's not just conveying of neutral information. There is actually an agenda, and it's very much a biased agenda. And I think based on everything that we've just said about our natural desire to know about things and our intense curiosity in something as important as sex and love, that people are going to want to promote it as well. It's not just being conveyed as a neutral, sanitized, factual delivery of information, right?
I go again to the base here. You don't change your sex orientation by reading or hearing or seeing it. It's profound.
Well, I don't know. You know what? When you know this with teenagers, they go as a herd. They do what the crowd does. At the moment, it's very popular to appear to be inclusive in every respect and to want to experiment and so forth. That is the reality. That's the peer pressure at the moment, right? I mean, you know this.
You know, I asked my son, who's 19 in college now, about that before I come here. And I asked him, how many gays have you seen with your colleagues at school? He said, one or two. One of them was playing soccer with them. That's it. It's not a big percentage of population.
We cannot depend upon one or two individual cases.
Anecdotal, sure.
Yeah, but what I want to ask, why is transgender is accepted as a normal thing? Well, my question is transgender and transfer the gender, or what? There is a multi names for that. Solve the problems of those kids, and what is the proof of that? Because there is some studies say that this transgender, it increased the committing suicide among those kids. So what do you think, Khaled?
They increased the percentage of suicide. This is because of the surgery, or because of the social pressure, or because of the discrimination against them. Usually these kind of people are sensitive to the environment around them, because they think they are different. And if we just emphasize the point that they are different, they are not accepted, they are, don't talk to him, he shouldn't be my neighbor, he shouldn't be my colleague at work.
It's refused by society.
It's refusal from the society. I think this will, even if it happened to any man or woman, healthy, for 10 years, he will commit suicide. The chance that he will commit suicide will increase. So I always find it difficult to put this link between events unless there is a good case for it. You know, that's like you can put a diagram of price of oil, and it will correspond the diagram of suicide, committing suicide somehow. It doesn't mean there is a relation between them. This is not causality.
Professor Scott, what about?
Okay. Gender dysphoria is actually a mental illness. It's still categorized as a mental illness. So in grade 3, children are being encouraged to consider whether they might be the opposite sex to the one that they are biologically. So in other words, they're being introduced to the concept that of a mental illness. We want you to consider this. Now, apparently, my understanding from reading studies on this over several years is that gender is very fluid at this time. Even children who think that they might be the opposite sex, by the time they hit puberty, a quarter of them have already changed their mind, or even up to 90% have changed their mind, and they've resolved the tension that they have there. But in any event, the statistics on people who believe that they're the opposite sex to that of their biological nature, 41% of them seek to take their own lives, which is a horrible statistic. And my question as a parent would be, why would I want my child to be introduced to a concept which even the psychiatric profession describes as a mental illness, when the suicide rates are so high? It doesn't seem to be a health thing, it seems to be introducing a sickness. Furthermore, when they actually have the surgery and the hormonal treatment and so forth, the suicide rates go up or remain flat. So in other words, the problem they perceived in their identity isn't solved even by the psychiatric and surgical intervention, which says to me that why on earth would we want to introduce that to children in grade 3? It seems to me to promote confusion. It seems to promote confusion.
Again, I didn't see it in grade 3.
Well, it is there, I assure you.
I have read the curriculum, I read the summary of it, I didn't see it at all in grade 3.
And I've spoken on it in public multiple times, in various venues.
They changed it,
and
because I just looked at it last week after
I wrote it, I put it in print in the National Post.
So actually, what I recommend that both of you
go back to the curriculum.
And give it to me and put it for Oxygen talk show audience.
I have 2 points here. The first point is, again, I have to insist on, you don't change your sexual orientation by reading or knowing about it.
Yeah, but this is gender identity. It's not the same.
It's the same. Kids, we all have kids, and I'm sure most of us, when they have little boys and girls together, the boys say, I want to be like my sister because you take care of her more. I want to be like my brother because he can go and play rough with his friends, and you tell me don't to do that. This is normal in their...
Yeah, it's playing.
That's normal in their growing up. They start to recognize the difference. There is a difference. There is a difference in behavior. There is a difference of acceptance. This is one. The other one is, if it's that dramatic, that people like this with this psychic disorder, mental illness, they are committing suicide and so on. And I believe that a good portion of the pressure of the causes, one of the causes make them kill themselves or commit suicide or be miserable in their life, is not only the problem with their sexual identity or gender identity is the social pressure around them.
Yeah, but that's just
If I-
speculation. You don't know.
No, yeah, let's try to teach the kids to respect it, to understand it, and we'll see.
Whereas I would just say you are male or female from birth. You're chromosomally, biologically, you have XY chromosomes, you have XX. You're either male or female in the vast number of cases. There are occasional exceptions. And to push against your own nature, to consider that as an opportunity, as an option, I think is the very thing that forces people to kill themselves. You introduce a sickness into the mind, and following down that trail, it goes from play acting to really imagining that it's so, and it's being taught as a health issue. Again, it's being taught by official teachers that this is something to be encouraged, and they see it being promoted in the entertainment
Encourage or
industry.
just know about it. There is a difference between knowing about
They're asked
something
to
and-
consider whether that might be the case for them.
or I know about it. There is a difference between the two.
Okay, let me finalize this point by a study which was made which finalized in 2011, and they make some studies from 1973 to 2003 on Sweden, and they found that the persons with transsexualism after sex reassignment have considerably higher risk for mortality. After 10 years, they have surgery, and transgender began to experience increasing mental difficulties. The suicide mortality, as I mentioned before, it is 24,000% increase. And also the studies say that 70 to 80% of the people who did not do these surgeons or these transgenders things, they return normal again after they fall.
That's what I'm
So
saying.
I just want to finish this point because I have also a very important problem in the 6-8 curriculum, which starts in grade 7 and grade 8, which encouraging the premarital sex relations. And I have two questions here. I will start with Khaled. Is it premarital relations is a good thing for kids in 7 and 8? And does it have other dimension? I mean, some people may benefit of this sexual relations before marriage.
I like conspiracy theory. Anyway,
You got it. I'll prove it
I
for
like
you.
it very much. No. Okay. Encourage? I don't think so. Talk about it? Maybe. We are, again, in a free society where sex before marriage is a norm. Okay? And I think in our phone call, we talked about what's happening even in Egypt.
Yeah, yeah.
So we will not go there.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is a norm. What happens, I don't encourage it. I give the kids the information to know about it.
Yeah.
I'm a pharmacist. I have seen, I'm not exposing any secrets here. I've seen 13 and 14 years old girls pregnant.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Because they have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what's going on. Or they are using the contraceptive in a wrong way. So you have two options here. You say it doesn't happen, don't do it, and they will do it, and will have pregnancy. Or you teach them, if you did so and so, have protection. You don't want to have kids. You don't want to be pregnant at the age of 14, and you will pay the price for the rest of your life, or your parents will pay the price for the rest of their lives, of your child, unwanted child. This is how to use the contraceptive. There is educational here. I'm not encouraging, I'm educating them. And when I tell people, let's read history, okay? What is the worst thing happened in the 20th century, Second World War? Why? Because of the conflict between communism and Hitler and Nazism. It doesn't mean I am telling the people you have to choose it. No, I know. That's what happened. This is history. This information, the flow of information. The more information I get, the better judgment I'll have.
When I was in when I'm 5 years old, and somebody tell me, here is the Nazist, and here is the communist, and here is the capitalism, and I think this is three ways of managing countries. But but they have told me that Nazist is very dangerous. It lead to this these consequences. Please, Professor Masson.
Well, I disagree that this curriculum is simply delivering information. It talks about consent at age 6. It asks children to consider their gender identity in grade 3. In grade 7, it has them make a plan for their sexual activity. They actually make a plan, and they're encouraged to be activists for LGBTQ activities and so forth, participating in pride events and so forth. So it's not the sort of education that you're describing. It is actually, you are meant to be actively involved in it, and as a matter of social justice, it is strongly pushed that way. I can assure you, and I've got the pictures myself on my hard drive, that the TDSB was promoting it in terms of becoming active, and in posters in the schools. These gay straight alliances are not just conveying information, they're promoting it.
Promoting what? Again,
They're promoting alternative sexualities and normalizing them thereby. I'm afraid I'm not saying that you would do that. I'm not saying that many educators would do that. I'm saying that the curriculum encourages that, and there are teachers that will seek to do that. I don't think it will happen everywhere. I do think it happens in large urban centers in a greater number, most definitely. I don't think in rural Ontario, I suspect it's as big of a problem, but in big urban centers, where I suspect most of your listeners are, I do think it is actually a significant issue. It is being encouraged. It's being encouraged not just in the schools and therefore given a stamp of official approval. It's in the entertainment industry, it's on the internet, it is everywhere, literally, it's in the music. I mean, it is there, and quite frankly, it's a horrifying prospect for parents. But I don't think that the education system becoming another activist organ is the way to address it. I think there must be other solutions to this. And that's all I would say. I don't object to sexual education. I object to the government imposing a curriculum and saying, here's how it's going to be. And you are not allowed to pull your children out of that curriculum. The government,
I think you can.
No, you cannot. The government has said that you may in public. Kathleen Wynne, Liz Sandals.
That's what I know.
Right, but the Equity and Inclusive Schools Act in 2009 says explicitly that you may not remove your children from classes that you object to. And I've had teachers confirm this to me. I
have a case that one of the parents have a case in the court right now.
Steve Torlucas in Hamilton. He
Yes,
has
in
wanted
Hamilton.
information
Yes.
about it, and
Yeah.
he has been litigating with them for 5 years. They will not give him the information, and it came out in public in the deposition that it is against the Equitable and Inclusive Schools Act, and that's why he can't find out the information. He can't pull his children out. We can't tell you the information in advance. There it is. So this is not just something, that's being friendly for families. It is being imposed on Ontarians. We didn't vote on this curriculum. I mean, if the government felt this strongly, why didn't they make it an election issue as part of their platform last time? It was not a part of the platform, but when they got a majority government, it came in right away.
Returning back to, for the time constraints of this episode, some people, there is doubts about some of the organizations with big organizations might use it in the wrong way and might use of encouraging such pre-marriage relations into some businesses. I will include a video right now.
They got the smelling salt. I woke up in the recovery room and looking around, I was really embarrassed, who faints to their first job. And when nurses looks at me, it's like, oh, you're new, huh? I'm like, yeah, don't worry, it still happens to a bunch of us. I'm like, really? It's like, yeah, some of us don't ever get over it. And I remember leaving that day, like, what have I got myself into?
So would you call that intact?
These are intact
Yeah,
kidneys,
okay.
yes. If somebody needed...
Because if I looked at that, I'd be like, that's good to go.
Oh, yeah.
I said 21.
Yeah.
5 stars.
Yeah, you could start a neural cell culture from this neural tissue right here.
Like, would someone want that?
This?
Yeah. Any of
Yeah,
this?
yeah. Oh yeah. Someone would definitely.
So even at 11 weeks, even though it's really early, because I know that's when we talked about
This is
second
neural
trimester.
tissue that people could take and look, and you see how it's still connected through the spinal cord back there. If you
Do we just
pull
send that all
pulls back.
together? And they pick it out? Or
You could actually, yeah.
Yeah, some people prefer that actually because it keeps it a little more protected. Yeah. That 11.6 was pretty good. There was I mean there was like 3 or 4 samples we could have taken out of the 11.6, so that would be if we were doing like 50 to 75 per specimen, that would be like 200, 300, right? And we'd be comfortable with that. But like so it's like stuff like this, like we don't want to do like just a flat fee of like 200 and then it's like
No, and I think the per item thing works a little better just because we can see how much we can get out of it.
It's really just about if anyone were ever to ask them, well, what do you do for this $60? How can you justify that? Or are you basically just doing something completely egregious that you should be doing for free? I think for affiliates, the end of the day, they're a nonprofit. They just don't want to. They want to break even, and if they can do a little better than break even and do so in a way that seems reasonable, they're happy to do it. I think this is definitely to be continued.
Definitely.
This video simply said that there is an organization called Planned Parenthood. This was published by the Washington Times in August 13th, 2015, about accusation of using the fetus or the newly born babies as organs trafficking. It was a big debate in the USA. And there was a video some of the activists shooted for people in such organization are providing some kind of fees for the organs trafficking and discussing that. It will be on the website, the website and Facebook page of Oxygen Talk Show to read about it. It was a negotiations, 5 US hold funding this, and on January 28th, I think they found that there is no accurate evidence. However, they say that they have some of the financial treatments in such way. So it is not conspiracy. It's all.
No, sorry, I didn't understand what is the relation.
Some encouraging the sex ed relation or the premarital sex relation might
so they can get the fetus.
The abortions it increases by a certain way. There is a business out of that.
There is a business of sex, of course. There is the music. There is I have to listen to the rap of my son. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the movies and there is sex is #1 seller for any product.
Yeah.
You take a look in the publicity for a car, and there is a beautiful woman beside. I have no idea what's the relation between the two.
Yeah.
They don't talk about the specification of the engine.
Yeah.
You have to look at the lady.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Nothing new about that.
There is nothing new about that. So there is money out of the sex here. How this related to the sex ed, I don't know. I have actually a opposite opinion about it. If you teach the kids about how to prevent pregnancy, even if they are sexually active, you will break this business, not vice versa.
Is it a teaching or open eyes for sensitive items?
Well, that's part of it, but the curriculum actually explicitly refers to community partners that can be brought in to assist on specifics related to the curriculum, and Planned Parenthood is one of those community organizations. There are several others, but again, they're all activist organizations promoting the very things that you were suggesting, with all due respect, are not being promoted, but actually the community organizations that can be brought in by schools most explicitly do that. The teachers themselves don't, but the recognized community partners, they do that. And just look in the curriculum at
but this
community
is not part
partners.
of the curriculum.
Oh yes, it is, because again, you can have these community partners come into your schools and make the presentations. It's right in the curriculum about what is of interest to those particular community. I mean, look at the community partners and you'll see what their interests are.
Yeah. Okay. What is the interests are for these companies to have
Planned Parenthood?
Yeah.
Planned Parenthood promotes sexual activity, quite frankly.
Abortion.
And abortion is its biggest financial gain. So it actually, so again, there's a financial interest that Planned Parenthood has in getting people involved in the sexual act, getting pregnant, and then aborting, which again will be on the taxpayer's dime, but I think results in ruined lives. So that's the connection.
I know
to
that
answer the question.
abortion is covered under OHIP.
It is covered under OHIP.
So there is no private business here.
Oh no, Planned Parenthood can get the OHIP funds. That's what I'm saying. So it just comes from.
I mean, the woman doesn't go to a private clinic to have abortion, and they can use the baby.
Though there is many cases that they use the organs of the baby, and there is a lot. I think there is a rate for each organ on the baby, and nowadays, to be frankly speaking, Planned Parenthood close the things, and they will not take any fees for having any organ.
Yeah, I was exposed. You're right.
Yeah. Let me finish. Yeah.
An organ of the baby.
Yeah, you can have it.
You have abortion is before the 12th week.
No, not in Canada.
Yeah.
In Canada, there's no restriction, right?
But you cannot have abortion after that.
Of course you can.
Doctor, they don't do it.
They do it. There's no restriction on it. You just have to find a doctor that does it, but I mean, they most certainly do it.
There is a law project, or there is discussing now after birth abortion was killing the baby. We will not discuss. There is a lot of things which is there, like the shared bathrooms and the transgender problems and all of that. But it's time to finish these interesting discussions. What we conclude that Khaled's point of view is information is protecting our kids from doing something wrong, and they should know. And the point of Professor Scott that this point or this sex ed curriculum might let our kids go to a certain way. It's still debate, not decided yet. It's up to you to decide. Yeah. So thank you very much for this time, and we will meet the next episode for the euthanasia debate. Please follow us. اهلا بكم مره تانية في اوكسجين فيوتشر، والسؤال المره دي على لو معايا من $50,000 لربع مليون دولار، $250,000 ازاي استثمرها في المجال العقاري؟ هل في اختلاف من 0 ل 50؟
في عندك 50 ولا 250,000؟ احكي لنا.
من 50 ل 250.
المبلغ طبعا 250,000 مبلغ فرق كبير، ولكن نحكي بحدود 70 أو 80,000 في مجال انه يستثمر في مجال العقارات، يعني في عملية ممكن شراء شقة في مدن مهمة. مبلغ بيكون اكبر بحدود 150,000 ممكن ان يكون مقدم لعملية شراء بيت مسكن فري هولد. الاستثمارين مهمين طبعا. الاستثمار الفري هولد اهم. فري هولد هو استثمار بيت، يعني انه تملك الشقق، هي مجموعة ساكنين يملكون مجموعة الارض. هذا هو عملية الاستثمار في الشقق. الاستثمار الفري هولد هو انه تشتري منزل بيت سكن على أرض معينة محددة لهذا المسكن. مبلغ 150,000 و200,000 و250,000 كذلك ممكن أنه يدخل في مجال شراء عقارات، عملية صيانة العقارات وتجديدها وبيعها، أيضا تحقق مردودات مهمة، تعطي أيضا معرفة وتعطي إشغال للوقت للناس اللي ممكن أنه يشغل وقته، هو يكون مهتم أو يكون عنده اهتمام أو نشاط في مجال التجديد والتصليح، كأن يكون لعمل ديكورات داخلية أو أن يقوم بنفسه بعملية التجديد. مردوداتها مهمة، وكثير من الناس يستثمرون في هذا المجال يكونون بالنهاية يحققون مردودات في مجال العقار مهمة، وفي مجال الشغل والعمل ومزاولة الاهتمام مهمة أيضا.
بالنسبة للاستثمارات المالية والأسواق المالية سعيد،
أنت بتفتح لنفسك رينج أكتر. يعني في الحلقة الأولانية، لما الحلقة اللي فاتت كنا بنتكلمنا إنه بس هيقدر يفتح لنفسه ممكن tax free saving account، وبالتالي أي استثمار بيعمله معفي تماما. أي استثمار تاني غير التاكس فري سيفنج أكاونت بيبقى عليه حاجة اسمها كابيتال جين، 50% كابيتال جين. فالنهارده لو هو وصلنا ل 150 200 250 عنده النهارده روم ان هو يقدر يفتح كذا تاكس فري سيفنج أكاونت. ولاده اللي هم فوق 18 سنة يقدر ان هو يحط برضو مبلغ ليهم باسمهم للتاكس فري سيفنج أكاونت. يبقى هو النهارده ابتدى يعمل استثمارات حتى لو عملت 6%، حتى عملت 7% معفية تماما من الضرائب، لكنه بيستثمر في فري زون. فدي النقطة الأولانية. النقطة الثانية هنقدر نبتدي نزود شوية الريسك. ممكن جزء من الانفستمنت ده يبقى ممكن with a higher risk. البورتفوليو بيبقى فيها جزء higher risk with a higher return. يعني السنة اللي فاتت مثلا 2015 احنا في بعض الحاجات عملت 22%. ليه؟ لأنه قدرنا نحط بورتفوليوز اللي هي مستثمرة في أمريكا، وبالتالي في الفرق الكرنسي دي لوحدها عملت 22% نتيجة الديفالويشن بتاع الكنديان كرنسي. فهنا احنا برضو بنوسع اكتر الرينج او المجال اللي احنا بنقدر نستثمر فيه.
طيب وبالنسبه لموضوع الضرائب في الاستثمار العقاري، يمكن سعيد ذكر ان في الضرائب معفيه في بعض النوع من الاكونتس اللي هو سيفنج اكونتس. ما هي الضرائب اللي محطوطه على الدخل من استثمارات الريل استيت؟
في الاستثمار في مجال العقارات، لو كان هو منزل او مسكن واحد يسكن الناس فيه لمده اكثر من 6 أشهر، يبيع العقار يشتري عقار ثاني، ليس هناك ضريبة تدفع لقاء هذه العملية. ولكن لو كان هو مستثمر بعقار ثاني، هناك شيء يطلق عليه كابيتال جين، وهو الفرق الناتج من عملية البيع والشراء ناقصا المصاريف. 50% على حد علمي، أعتقد محاسب ممكن أن يخدم أكثر في هذا المجال، 50% من هذا الربح يخضع للضريبة. وبالتالي أعتقد لو يعني كمعادلة دائما تستخدم كفورمولا، مبلغ الفرق ناقص المصاريف يدفع منها 20 to 25% كابيتال جين.
أشكركم جدا على هذا اللقاء، وهنتكلم إن شاء الله على مرحلة جديدة من الاستثمار أو مبالغ أكبر شوية، وهي من $250,000 ل$1,000,000 في الحلقة الجاية. شكرا علاء يوسف، شكرا سعيد يونس.
شكرا.